EWC, as well as let's jump into the draft for game number 1. G2 on the blue side, which is a big deal.
I think one of the really big stories for G2 this tournament has been Caps' flexibility. Is LeBlanc that got them here in the first place. The amount of pressure Skumon is able to play with when Caps has that mid-prio, and Hans Sama's consistency on the late game carries, especially the Xayah. We'll see the Taliyah, the Annie, and the Aurora taken away here. The Aurora, strong pick for both Chovy and Keen. I love the setup for taking away Chain CC with the Annie and the Taliyah as well for single target pick that they remove. So making GENG have to play a composition that's going to be a little bit more complex than just blowing somebody up.
Yeah, and this is really interesting. This is Vi or Azir. Which one do you want to be taking away?
I think you'd take away the Azir here. Because even though Vi is incredibly powerful, there are ways to shut it down, and you get the red side 1-2 answer here. And with so many power picks already taken away, GENG you're going to be happy with, especially when you consider, I was going to mention this as well, that Skumon doesn't necessarily always go for the Vi in these situations. He's happy to play Maokai. It has been his best pick. So once again, going for comfort here. And there's a ton of flexibility in a draft like this with the Maokai first pick. Even though it's less meta and it's kind of a G2 exclusive, they've been able to pull so many good drafts out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that the Forest remains in LEC, but it just isn't really elsewhere in the world. Keen, he's thinking that he doesn't exactly have a sword, but he does have scissors that might be able to help cut through.
This is interesting because it does give Broken Blade the opportunity just to play Rumble into this with the Maokai already available. It feels like a really strong setup for G2. They will get the Skarner in return here.
Yeah.
As I just feel like it's super obvious to grab Rumble at this point.
It could be an opportunity here for BB if he wants to go for it. There are some other matchups into the Gwen that people have kind of liked. Ambessa was chosen, I think, by Doran yesterday, and it didn't really work. Quite a few things have been experimented with. One of them is, I guess, theoretically, Mundo. We have seen it hovered a whole bunch, so I don't really want to talk about it. But the lock-in is looking like a Jace, and there it is.
Jace is so commonly picked with Maokai in Korea as well. It's so easy to land your accelerated shock blast or punish a target that gets caught by the Maokai Nature's Grasp. So a strong combo, which also is great when you outrange the Gwen. You win the lane early. You just sit there with the range advantage in range mode and just kind of pew-pew the Gwen away. So you get prio with it. Caps looks to lock in the Yone here.
That is kind of crazy. And of course, the Maokai is going to be built a lot of AP, right?
Like, yeah, right now,
oftentimes we see a bunch of tank Maokais in the LCK if it ever does come out. But in the LEC, they do really like it to be built full AP. That's what we saw from Skumon last time out as well. And so Chovy, where's the Silas, mate? That's what I want to see. That'd be a whole lot of fun. That's a dragon. So that is just going to be instantly locked in. That could be for Ruler. That could be for Chovy. We'll just have to wait and see.
My expectation is that it's likely going to be for Chovy here.
I think so too. I think they're just picking their champions, Wolf. I think that's what's happening.
The reason why is there are so many picks, like there's just too many in game 1 of Fearless that shut Smolder down in lane in the bottom 2v2, whereas in a range versus melee matchup into the Yone, you could stack incredibly well. Ziggs getting taken away. This is kind of tricky because obviously there is some element of AP damage missing here. Yes, Maokai will build AP, but it's not the same kind of oomph that you're looking for. But it's also strong into Smolder. So this is a little bit tricky here for GENG, saying we might still play this in the bottom lane. We don't want you to have the Ziggs into the Smolder down there, but I think it's just a wise ban in general.
Yeah, and also going back to the whole LCK likes to play Maokai as a tank thing, you don't see Maokai as a representation of magic damage in a composition so much these days back at home. So a likely reason why they're banning that one away. If the Kaiser is also banned, then we can tell that that's exactly the reason for it. Also does fit into this composition quite nicely, as the follow-up to a Maokai is generally pretty comfortable with the amount of AoE he has.
The Nico ban here means you probably just go for something like an Alistar ban as GENG. Don't necessarily want to be looking for that pick in this bottom lane. Also would kind of reveal that you're not playing Smolder down there for sure. I don't think you ever want to be playing a Smolder Alistar lane in almost any scenario. So this final ban is really tricky for G2. You know, something like a Leona would be seen in previous metas, which is super safe in the bottom lane, but this is a really tough one. They're going to go for the Braum, which can be decent into both the Yone and that Jace pick. And now we're going to find that reveal. Might just be a support pick here to keep it a little bit open-ended.
Yep, could be a bit ambiguous here. Is Duro, what is he going for? I feel like Blitzcrank's about to happen. I
was thinking the exact same thing, but they're going to look for a different hook in this Nautilus. And this Nautilus is so flexible here, like the Leona was mentioning, because if you do end up playing that Smolder bottom lane with the roots for the Nautilus, it's hard to dive, especially with the Maokai composition. You know, it's just not really easy to go down there and punish that Smolder, so still incredibly open-ended. Remember, picks like the Victor are still up if Gen G want to go incredibly heavy on that late-game scaling in this draft. They already have strong late-game with the Smolder and the Gwen side lane power.
Yeah, and this I actually kind of like this amount of flexibility that Gen G is sitting on. The Rel does fit into this very divey style of composition.
Is this going to be Rel MF here to try to dominate the lane and have a lot of combos set up?
Oh, the Corki that doesn't really make any of us feel good ever is going to be locked in. Hansama laughing at us in our feelings right now.
I think the Corki's okay here because most of this composition is low range. It's hard to get to the Corki, and the Corki's additional mobility could be used aggressively to snipe this Smolder pick. So
sniping.
I do think that it is quite strong. Jin here is really interesting because I think if you look at just the Gen G composition, you don't look at G2, it's incredibly powerful because you have the Gwen and the Skarner to really set up for Jin. You have this insane front line. They're going to be fighting far away from the Jin. He has a ton of agency. But when you look at G2's comp and how well they can lock down that front line and actually just circumvent it with Shock Blasts and stuff like that, not as big of a fan of this Jin pick, but it is going to be pretty stable in the laning phase. As we expected, even though it was still kind of relatively unknown until the end, Chovy will be playing the Smolder into Caps Yone, and Chovy is known to stack quickly. He's known for really oppressive laning phases. Sometimes the Smolder gets a little bit slower in the mid lane because he's not able to achoo onto multiple targets. He's only facing off against that one mid laner, but into a melee mid laner like the Yone, sometimes that just doesn't matter. You can even flap your way into some additional stacks, just Q constantly. And we'll see what runes he does go for, because we have also seen a ton of Grasp Smolder to just get additional health stacking and be so difficult to deal with later on in the game.
Chovy really likes Grasp as well on basically anything that he plays, so we'll just have to see what he is going to be building here. Likely going to be sticking into that mid lane for a large portion of this game, and that's kind of what he's been doing here at EWC as well. Even his rise that we saw yesterday was just kind of parked there, and all of a sudden had like a 70 CS lead by the end of the game, and otherwise we hadn't really seen him. So we'll see whether that is going to be another situation here, because of course the Smolder is a win condition by himself. And I think that really does open the door for this Jin pick to be powerful, to be strong, right? Because we have seen a lot of Jins that have, you know, been required to be the sole AD carry, and that hasn't worked here at EWC for 2025. But here we are, onto the Rift for game number 1, Gen G versus G2. The tale as old as time. G2 have given a lot of bad memories to Gen G in the past. Ruler will remember those, you know, many years ago. And so we'll see whether it's going to be once again heartbreak for Gen G at the hands of G2, or whether this time is going to resemble the most recent outing at MSI.
We have an incredibly full crowd today. We have had pretty full crowds throughout this event here in Riyadh, but it has been really cool to see, despite the fact that, you know, you have a massive Western audience here cheering for G2. We saw MKOI's fans as well. You also have, you know, so many Korean fans who have traveled, just like last year, to support the Korean squads. We've had our Chinese fans coming in as well. And people traveling here to Riyadh from all over the world, and to have a relatively even split crowd for this semifinals match is so awesome, Atlas, as we are good to go here in this first game. So much of this game, to me, is going to come down to the angles Keen can find in these mid-game team fights, because if he's just simply rooted and locked down and can't actually close the gap onto this Corki that's very mobile, or this extremely long-range Jace, the Gwen doesn't necessarily get a lot done.
Yeah. And I think for Gen G, this is going to be all about how well you play the defense. And they have been good at that in the past. That has been their bread and butter, especially if you remember, you know, the old Gen G memes where they were the most boring team ever and just only played defensively, did nothing for as long as possible, and then won the game. That is likely what they want to do in this one, because the mid-game that G2 are representing is kind of terrifying. With the 2-item spikes, even the 1-item spike to come out of the Yone is massive. Hansama with a Trinity Force is going to be very, very scary. And GENG are just going to have to take what they can get, play the side lanes, manage to get cross-map stuff happening, and just weather the storm until there's a couple of items on Chovy, until there's a few stacks on this Smolder. And he's going to get a ward down as Caps comes in. This is something that Chovy hasn't worried about too much, scrapping in the early game on this Smolder. But you can see here Caps feeling pretty good as he stacks up that Q.
Respecting Caps a lot here in this matchup to go for the fleet footwork, set up the grasp, just trying to build some additional distance and be able to trade aggressively and try to get those stacks up rather than trying to be a little bit more of a tanking force later on with that grasp. As plays like this, we're able to avoid that Q3 kill really nice. You get that proc of the fleet footwork and you're getting your health back, you're trading well. This is obviously going to be the Doran's shield versus the Blade here in this matchup. Chovy trying to do as much damage as possible to heal, and Caps just weathering the storm here as he becomes more relevant later on. This mid matchup is so fun.
Chovy missed a CS, so it could be a really bad time here. Taking Flap second, though, that's able to avoid the Q. Speaking of level 2s, going to be coming through here for G2 on the bottom side of the map, getting the push. As Keen actually having a pretty good time here against Broken Blade. As I say that, he loses a trade, so maybe I need to stop talking, Wolf.
All about where Keen's Q is stacked and when he decides to look for that trade into Broken Blade. Otherwise, Broken Blade has to space really well here and harass as best as he can. But with Keen taking flash, it can be tricky. See, Caps is really struggling to take these trades. Chovy avoided both of his knockups there, was able to trade back. And that fleet footwork is working really well for him in this early game, starting to stack up a significant gold lead here at the CS advantage he has. But more than that, 13 stacks online. Once he hits that 25 breakpoint, that's when this really starts to get rolling here for the Smolder in terms of the lane matchup and the wave clear.
Yep. Full clear, now almost finished for Canyon and Skewmon. Skewmon needing to get on towards his blue buff pretty soon, but that Gromp will be dead momentarily. So we've got a bit of an engage here as Duro just trying to keep his 80 carry safe, but down to 100 is Ruler. One more auto attack would do it, but it doesn't actually come through. He'll still have to go home. Good news for G2, but unable to get that first blood is a bit heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but they get both summoners there. Knowing Ruler takes the cleanse in this draft because he's a relatively vulnerable target on this Jhin means that he doesn't have barrier, and I think it was really good judgment there from Hansama. If he just gets that one extra auto, it's 100% a kill confirmed, but either way, still double summoner confirmed. We are going to see the lane swap to come through here, and Ruler is only able to pick up his brown bags and a refillable off of the back, so definitely not an ideal situation, not exactly what he was looking for here in this early game. So a big win for G2, a massive CS lead, a tier plus longsword buy for Hansama. When you're playing Ezreal, when you're playing Corki, that 2-item spike, when you can get that extra longsword off your first back, you feel amazing.
Yeah, you really do. And there's also the fact that GENG loses an entire wave. They weren't actually able to get Keen down towards that bottom lane in time. And so an entire wave is going to be sacrificed to that turret. That does mean a little bit of an advantage as far as the money is concerned going over to G2 in this early game. They probably want that lead to be extended, but not just yet, right? Like, this isn't the timing. Mid-game is going to be where G2 are really, really formidable. So right now, just need to fill their wallets as much as possible and get to that point as comfortably as they can. Speaking of which, a little bit of a battle here in the mid lane as Chovy and Caps fighting it out. And every time Chovy lands that Q, I feel the dopamine, Wolf, as LeBron moving on in here, looking for an angle onto Ruler. The captive audience is going to be there.
I mean, he got 6 stacks off of that exchange. You know, like with the minions there as well. He went from 25 to 31 right off of it. Can flap Q, 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 a chew. And, I mean, he is just stacking so quickly. Is
Hook coming on through there, but now it is just
not sure about that one, Duro.
He will flash. That'll get himself out of there, but Ruler just was not interested in fighting this at all. He's like, no, you just tank this up, and I am just going to make sure that I get down towards this bottom lane in time.
There are times as the support where you need to do something like this to guarantee your 80 carry gets the back. I don't think this was one of those times, unfortunately, for Duro.
Yeah.
He does end up losing his flash, as you mentioned. Will also delay his own back as a result. And now it's just Ruler laning into Broken Blade on the bottom side. Keen having a tough time there on the top side as well as Chovy. He's not having a tough time. He's like, yeah, you want to trade into me early? You've got your Vamp Scepter. I'll just keep hitting you. I'm stacking, baby.
Yep, 43 stacks already. Just have to see when he does make it to those break points, right? 225 is what we're going to be looking out for later on in the game, around 20 minutes being a decent clip for that one.
Does not have level 6 here. They're going to have to TP for the defense. Duro going to come over here. This should be able to stop the dive, but it is going to be matched, in fact, by Broken Blade. They want to double down.
Yeah, this is actually kind of crazy, though, because now Broken Blade has used that teleport to get towards the top side, and no one is going to be there to defend against Ruler, and he knows it. You can see continuing to shove up.
Yeah, they just decide to go back for the swap. I thought perhaps Broken Blade was going to force the dive before they swap, knowing that Ruler has that extra push, but it's just going to be a delayed response here in the bottom side. Ruler may be able to put significant damage into that first plate. Decides to back here. Actually, we'll get away with it free. Still some damage going into that plate, but he won't secure it. But a lot of CS lost here, really evening up what was a significant lead here for Ansama and Labrov. They still will have a lead, and he still will get most of these minions here, but definitely felt like a missed opportunity there in the top side as Ruler's sprinting back up here with his Swifties to the top lane as we just continue to swap lanes.
Yeah, that's the strategy, you know, avoid the matchup as much as you just possibly
get out of there.
And with the Swifties, it's going to be helping out here as Duro is going to try and hold Labrov in place momentarily. Chovy's like, stop trading, I need to kill minions, please, as he sneezes on Caps. Does get knocked up this time around, but he's just been using the flap every time the soul has been unbound, and that hook somehow landed. Could have sworn that the wall would get in the way there, but the hitbox of a Nautilus still being that thing, you know?
Every single ability Chovy hits is meaningful. You know, like the fact that he hits that hook and there's a ward over the wall and Chovy could just Q over the wall and hit Labrov. He's like, all right, thanks, man. +1, by the way.
You see those stacks
+2
go up.
Yeah. +3, +4.
Oh, no.
Yeah, +3.
Watching the big, like the 100 come up as he kills all of those minions with a Q as well feels pretty nice. As the Chovy glazing will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll try and focus elsewhere as much as we can.
Yeah.
But the dopamine of number goes up is just too much.
Well, I mean, when you look at the gold lead being so significant, or so insignificant as hold up, we're going to have a bit of a fight here.
Yeah.
Canyon has ult
through there as they're looking to turn it on to Duro. But there is the Impale to answer the ulti, and down goes the tree. Cap's now in trouble, does get saved by the Nature's Grasp from the grave. But Genji's answer was just too good, as in the meantime, Keen towards this bottom side, getting the scissors out against Broken Blade. And they will just, I was about to say trade ultimates, which I guess is technically correct, but not real, because it's Jace. But still, Keen going aggressive, looking for a bit of an angle.
That's
Genji looking for even more.
And that's a grub set up here for Gwen in a side lane. Feels amazing for Genji, who already got that first dragon. And, you know, Chovy on the Smolder, it's again, we're not glazing Chovy so much, just talking about what the champion could do as he grabs some additional gold here. He is deceptively Smolder strong in the early fights if there's any sort of setup with his ultimate. And the AoE he can provide with his Q, with his W, these types of skirmishes. Kenyon, it's level 60, he's like, we win these, by the way. More stacks, more fighting.
The combo as well was like absolutely ridiculous.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like Zeri, deceptively strong in early skirmishes as Keen looking to fight this one out.
Yeah, Duro not quite as strong as Keen without the needlework. Going to be backing away. Broken Blade looking a little worse for wear, but has his Rel alongside him. So
Broken Blade
get this wave shoved in.
Has flash, so I just don't think Keen has any angle here to look for a flash Q to try to win this one out. Just going to have to play respectively instead.
Yeah, hasn't stacked that one up just yet. Genji just fighting for some tempo. And having a look around the rest of the map, Canyon is about to finish another full clear. Should be able to do so after the southern side is dealt with. There's Duro playing with fire here a little bit on this bottom lane. And Keen just going to eat this wave. So it's just felt pretty dicey as once again, Hook going to come on through there at the flash forward. Broken Blade, I don't know about that one, and Labrov is dead as well. The feats of warfare so comfortable here for Gen G, as that was just a little bit of a whoopsie from P2.
Big disaster. Chovy now the target here, but he's going to be totally fine. He's smaller, doesn't even need to flash. And this is what I was talking about earlier about how Nautilus could be used defensively in a lot of situations under turrets, man. Like, if you go for that dive, you don't get the kill instantly, you're not getting out. Duro was 100% ready for that. He was just sitting there going, oh, there's no way they try it. I have the high ground.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, Keen gets engaged on here, and Labrov's in dredge line range. Keen has a ton of damage. He's got his Q stacked. And Labrov gets rooted. Like, you can't get away from this Nautilus if you commit in. And Broken Blade on the other side is feeling real rough here. Dylan Falco also frustrated because the deeper and deeper you pull into this quicksand of a composition for Gen G, like the faster you sink because it's got the Smolder that's stacking. By the way, Chovy sub 12 minutes. He's gonna hit it at like 11:30, that big break point of 125, and then this Smolder just flies towards the big 225.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, it's the last 100 that is so much easier because you get so much extra AOE. You're exactly right. And this is like what makes it so hard against this composition as well, because you feel so much pressure to make things happen. You can understand why, Bibi and Labrov went for that engage, because otherwise, if you don't do anything, you just lose. Like later in the game, this composition does infinity damage. And by this composition, I mean Smolder.
It is the Smolder, but it's also the Gwen that has 3 grubs.
Yeah, true. Side lane will be really hard.
Broken Blade is already significantly behind in this matchup, especially after that play bottom side. I mean, that's the main reason why he's that far behind, but this Gwen is going to be a menace, as Chovy is going to back here after hitting 125. Look for that Trinity Force buy. I mean, things could not be better for GENG.
Nope. This is precisely what they wanted. In fact, they could have been a whole lot more even than this and still be feeling like they're absolutely winning, as Mom comes down in this mid lane. And his soul is going to put him back here, whether he likes it or not. Down to 100, has to ult away. The auto attack was not in the air though. Down to 100 health, but will survive. And Chovy still wants more, sneezes over that wall, and he's going to just, I guess, settle for some plates.
I mean, Caps doesn't have TP. Like, he just absolutely gets smashed by Chovy there. Did not respect the Smolder damage. Chovy TP's back with Triforce, crushes him there, pushes him out of the lane, grabs plate gold and some additional stacks. Like, he actually looks like he's going to get 2 plates here, because remember, he also has 3 grubs.
I didn't know that the Smolder Yone matchup was just unplayable.
It's just really tough, especially when Chovy's playing it this well. Like, Caps went for those early trades, and Chovy avoided everything with the flaps, and it's just, like I said, it feels like quicksand. Like, the more you struggle, the more you try to force. If you don't actually make that headway, you feel so desperate to do it, you just fall further and further behind. And 2,000 gold is not an insurmountable lead for a lot of compositions, but for the setup here, it's not like the game is unplayable for G2, but it's got to be in your headspace, right? For your mental, it's getting a little boom right now, because you're like, is there any way out?
Yeah, maybe it's time to start thinking about what we can do to not give them a scaling draft next time around. As
Broken Blade.
Looking for BB here towards his top side as he just walks up, looks for the auto. The hook is not going to land. Does almost get the passive, but doesn't actually get it, as the heal going to come out. Actually played so well here by BB as they're looking for Duro. They will take that as the first kill. Can BB survive? That's the question, as Keen is untouched. The flash to follow here from Keen as the needlework is out, and they're not going to get greedy for the kill on to the Rel. I say that as Canyon looks to come in, throwing some rocks around here on this bottom side as he smites the Rel. Continues throwing things, but isn't going to continue further forward.
Keen, 3 grub Gwen, going to grab another plate. Skumond is here, but just a little bit too far away for Nature's Grasp. They push Labrov away, stop his backs. And man, it's just getting tougher and tougher. Because I actually watch how Broken Blade plays this. He sees that Duro's looking for the greedy route into Dredgeline Connect, and so he decides to actually get the knockback first. It's actually really smart here. Is able to then avoid the Dredgeline, go for the trade back here. Unfortunately, despite an amazing timing here on the re-engage for Labrov, just takes so much damage because another Dredgeline goes through. He's held in place for Keen to come over here with a big lead to take him out. I feel like Broken Blade played the earlier part of that fight, though, super well.
Yeah.
Still ends up being a trade.
It's against the flow of play here for G2, though. They need every positive that they can get right now. As Canyon's moving over, this is not going to be one of those positives, I do not think, unless he gets the movement speed, and there it is. Nicely played. Phase Rush is one heck of an ability, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Doubling up on control wards in this brush.
Oh, yeah.
Ruler is not going to get caught, as this is just going to be a turret to go down here. Feats of Strength were already GENG's, but they get the first turret as well.
Oh, dear. Okay, never mind. There was no one there to follow up on Hansama. Bit of a check-in on Chovy, who's at about 170 stacks right now, 15 minutes. Does have, 50 odd to go before he does hit that
the fastest possible for a mid lane Smolder is usually around 17 to 17:30, and he's kind of on track to potentially hit that, if he's left to his own device, if he gets to get into another skirmish. Caps will trade a turret back, by the way. Yeah. And he has Skumond here to help him get out. I don't think GENG will be able to punish, so that's a big win. Finally looking for that first item. Caps has been behind Chovy for so much of this game. Spent so much time on the side lane just trying to catch up. Hasn't backed for a while. Should be able to pick that one up here, but I think G2, what they really need here is an insane combo where Skumon catches somebody, Capson and Labrov are able to combo, Hansama is able to clean up the kills. You know, G2 need an explosive team fight here before this really gets off the rails. It needs to happen before Chovy hits that big 225. So realistically, your fight options here are this next dragon, and that's it. Like, it has to be here. It has to be now. The Bork is done here for Caps. Hansama has his Triforce. This has to be really G2 winning a convincingly swimmingly winning fight.
Wow,
that came out hard, but like, it's hard for G2 to win it. It's hard to say it. Here we go.
Yeah,
they're looking for it.
Off against Labrov. Chovy over the wall doesn't like it as the Rift Herald going to be ridden down this mid lane. That'll finish off the outer turret. But Canyon is now going to be in a pretty awkward position. He's just so tanky, though, as the dredge line comes on through. Skumon going to get rooted, and they're just going to collect the jungler. He does make his way out, though, as they decide it's Labrov that dies first, and that is precisely what's going to happen. Duro looking a little worse for wear as the rockets from Hansama are starting to hurt, but G2 don't like the idea of a 4 versus 5, especially with Caps on the top side of the map, and they're going to see what they can do in the cross map instead as they give away Soul Point.
I think G2 really wanted to try to play that a little bit slower, but things went a little bit awry there at the outset. And then it was just a quick reaction by GENG and Duro. Skumon gets caught, and that's the end of it. You know, Caps could have TP'd in faster and tried to force a response from Keen and look for a combo there. It looks like instead he wanted to just threaten that side lane. The top turret's relatively vulnerable. You know, if he's able to interrupt Keen's TP, for example, you know, there's ways that this could be played out for G2 if they play it slow, but it's the worst possible scenario, right? Not only do they not get the fight they're looking for, they lose the fight, they lose the dragon, and I think that was their best chance to get back into this game, and they missed the opportunity, and GENG are just coasting. Chovy is not going to quite hit the 17.5 minute 225, but he is 13 away.
Yeah, 19 minutes ain't bad as Broken Blade going to be able to get the boot back as Keen tanking up this turret momentarily. Teleport is going to be the answer here to even things out on the bottom side, but Caps really didn't want to use that to get down towards this bottom lane as they were going for a bit of a 1-3-1. Now GENG feeling like they will be able to utilize this man advantage as Chovy's flapping in there. Does sneeze on Hansama here. And the Labrov just going to be backing away. GENG unable to force, at least at this moment.
So for those who don't know, which is probably very few of you, but we haven't seen Smolder be a mainstay champion in the meta for a long time. When he hits 225, he gets an execute marker like an Elder Drake, as we're going to have to talk about it later because Caps is dead.
Yeah, Caps is dead. Maybe you can talk about it now, as the fate is indeed sealed. Unfortunately, it's the other person's. As Broken Blade's teleported in, does do a fair bit of damage here to Keen.
But look at Chovy, he's like, all right, cool, now no one's answering me.
And also, BB has to flash to get himself out of the way of that one. And cops a boulder to the head, but not going to be dying in this lane.
He's going to get the whole inner in the top lane? He's got a huge wave.
It's sort of like you just want to not look at the minimap and just not allow Chovy to really be on screen while he's taking stuff. While GENG are also fighting what feels like
Chovy
even fights.
He's waiting for that minion wave. He's like, where's the next minion wave? I'm going to hit it. I'm looking
he's
for it.
hitting like 20 minutes, which is like pretty standard actually, so the stacking isn't as fast as we
He hasn't been in a lot of fights, which really
slows it down. It sort of slowed
down
towards the end, right? Because there was no one in the lanes that he's been, been farming.
So that does affect it, obviously, especially if you're able to sit in the mid lane against multiple people and just keep stacking those Qs on the AoE. It goes a lot faster, but the speed doesn't matter when you're in a stable game state. Sometimes you're like, oh man, we really need to hit that because you're so far behind. You really need to hit that 225. Then maybe you can catch up in this game. That's how the Smolder goes half the time, where you are actually behind because of the weaker early game. But this game, because GENG have such a lead, he's like, well, I mean, it's no rush. I'm still going to get it. By the way, he still hasn't gotten it.
He needs one. He needs to just like last hit a minion with the Q.
Just WQ that wave, Chovy. Okay.
So manages.
There we go.
Okay, never mind. 28. 228. As GENG are going to look for the Otacon here. Teleport to come in for Keen as well. All 5 committed. As Caps, I mean, there is just no information here for G2. They throw a sapling in. That might be able to help try and steal it away, but it's just not something that G2 are even going to attempt. As Canyon locks that one up. And GENG, 4,000 gold in the lead. Otacon, feats of strength, everything that they could want. As Canyon looks for an Impale, does not quite get it. But he's going to be able to steal away the enemy Gromp.
They are able to, deny a wave on the bottom lane. Broken Blade's been able to get some additional time there. Can maybe try to wrap around, look for a play here with Labrov onto Ruler. But he's seen by all of this vision coverage. There's so many captive audiences here as well. Ruler's just chilling. And for G2, really your best hope on that Otacon was a faster group, or maybe GENG looked to turn the fight a little bit too early. You're hoping for a mistake, and they group and they go, well, Broken Blade, just keep pushing. This is all we can really do right now. As they know they've been checkmated in this game, but they've been checkmated for quite a while, and you're just hoping and praying for some sort of big mistake. I mean, Hansama is slow on the stacks here, but will hit 2 items fairly soon. He has the only gold lead, as minuscule as it is here for G2, but they need more than that to win this game. They need to blow up multiple threats. Like, when you get to this point of the game with GENG's composition, it's not just kill the Smolder. There's a Jhin, there's a big Gwyn, who is 4 kills.
Massive, 2.4k ahead.
So, there's just too many threats. It's a triple threat.
Yeah. And I actually didn't feel like this game was a Keen div, right? That's not what I was sort of feeling, because the Smolder has been a large problem. It's been ganks towards the top side of the map that's allowed Keen to get this lead. But it just means that he's untouchable in side lanes. Now, waiting on a flank angle as well, as Canyon parking himself on this wall. Shock Blast going to give away Broken Blade's position, and Keen just remaining out of vision right now. There's the hook to start things off as Canyon just gets amongst it, finds the Impale. It's a decent Magnet Storm, but they just don't quite have the damage. Hansama's going to get exhausted and then rooted up and taken down. It's a double for Keen as the root comes in yet again from Ruler, and Canyon just looks immortal. Ruler's going to get another kill. That's a double for the Jhin. And GENG can do no wrong. They're going to look for a soul.
Yeah, I'd love to see.
I think it's looking like we're on the verge of the game being over, and G2 needing to just focus on what's happening in game 2.
And I hate to say it for all those European fans out there, those LEC fans and those G2 fans who've watched this team perform against Korean teams, against LPL teams for years and years and years, and have never stopped doubting, never doubted, never stopped cheering. But I think this game was over about 6 minutes ago, and in truth, like, I want to see the team fight damage in that one, because guess what? Caps and Chovy didn't show up. That was a team fight win without Chovy scaling, without his stacks coming through. Yes, he was there at the very last second and got like 1 rotation of spells off after the fight was already over, but Caps didn't end up getting there at all. And it was just the Gwen and the Jhin getting it done with Canyon, setting them up there with Duro. It was just straight up a 4v4 fight without your massive, massive late game win con. And imagine what happens, what the fights look like if Chovy is there. And it's the really scary thing to visualize in your brain when you think about what's going to happen on this upcoming Baron in a minute's time here.
Yep, that's going to be the target, as everything else has been taken here by GENG. Chovy just sneezing on some minions here on the top side. We'll be able to shove that wave forward. G2 haven't lost, an inhibitor turret yet or anything like that. The base is still intact, but maybe not for too much longer, as Duro going down exceptionally low. Magnet Storm comes in. Hansama will turn up to this fight as the Nature's Grasp comes on over. Mom not doing necessarily too much. It's actually reserved just for Broken Blade, as Duro is able to hook a Merkwolf. Not necessarily the target they were looking for, as Hansama down to 0 health. Broken Blade going to get tagged by that first bullet, and Chovy just going to finish that one off as Caps ults over the wall and then dies. It's a quadra kill, and Wolf, that's what happens when the Smolder's in the fight.
Yeah, he does 4,000 damage in this one, less than the Jhin, actually, as he really just did cleanup on that, as actually Ruler doing most of the work at the early part of the fight with Keen. And that's it. A 25-minute game here in the first one. Who needs late game scaling?
Is it a pentakill for Chovy here at EWC? I mean, it could be. There it is! The penta! I didn't even know that they were still in combat for that long.
It's been a little while, but it's not long enough for that to wear off, as Skumon can do nothing but watch. But 5 kills for Chovy, 25-minute game. Who needs late game when you can hit that scaling in the early? Yeah. And it was Chovy just crushing the mid matchup against Caps, playing with the range advantage. And I think one of the big turning points in this game that the coaching staff for G2 and everyone will go back to is the attempted kill on Keen and Duro in the bottom lane that failed. The double that goes over, the Gwyn that gets so incredibly accelerated. That really felt like one of the last nails in what could have been G2's coffin there. And then they look for the fight on that Dragon, the third Drake, but aren't able to take it the way they want. They get disrupted. They don't get the fight they're looking for. And GENG just run away with it.
Yeah, Chovy spent a lot of this fight, like you were talking about, just trying to deal with Caps and what he was doing. Mom comes down a little bit later, and he's not even focused on where it's heading, right? He just wants to get these executes, and they definitely do come on through, as we know. The cleanup coming on down, as even the flap damage was kind of relevant in that one.
You can see Chovy's face is yelling Penta, 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 by the way.
Yep. And we do go forward in time just a little bit, and the Penta is actually achieved there as Cody picks it up here in game number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to take a short break. It's a best of 3. G2 have a chance to come back, but it is looking dire here after the first game.